Hi everyone and welcome back. I know I've been away for a while and I apologize to my friends that were actually enjoying my videos. Some of us have been, fortunate and haven't been really impacted by this whole pandemic as much as others. And for those of us who have, it's been a rough go sometimes. And I want to talk about something that kind of relates because I'm seeing a lot more of it today than we probably did, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And today what I want to talk about is depression. Now, this is one of those things that I never gave much thought to in the past in my own life. I'm a bit stubborn and I never thought that I was ever depressed. It was never something that I would ever, admit to anyway. And I've been reading a couple books recently, and one in particular that it wasn't even about this topic, but had a few statements in it that just gave me this light bulb moment in my life. That I realized that I've had bouts of depression my whole life. And when I say depression, I'm not just talking about, you're feeling bad for a day here. And I never recognized it in myself in the past, or was never able to actually admit it to myself. One of the two. I'm still trying to resolve exactly how I came out of those bouts of depression and, wasn't able to recognize some of this. And I can see that some of it is probably due in part to, the lack of understanding that many people have about it. But I can see how, depression became a disruption and caused a lot of chaos in my life in the past. I had relationships with people that had been ruined by, my depression or the depression of somebody else. And not being able to recognize it as that and be able to provide the support to that person when they needed it, or to be able to ask for that support when I needed it. So my point here is to kind of help after my, share some information after my light bulb moment. Many of us have, as I said, have a great misunderstanding of depression, and we may think we know what it is, but really until we actually look at some of the points, and until I actually looked at some of the points and, ranked myself by some of those basic points, I never admitted to myself that I had ever been, depressed at times in my life, for, sometimes months on end. So I'm going to talk about some of those points, and I'm going to talk about what it is. Depression isn't just a word. We need to kind of understand what it means and what are some of those symptoms of it. So let me explain how it feels, and maybe you can relate, because I think there are many more people suffering with it today than a year or two ago, especially with everything that's going on. It's easy to get into and feel some of these points, especially in this lots of literature on depression. Like the feeling that I'm no good, or the feeling that something isn't good enough about ourselves, how we might feel faulty, or we may feel that our world is bleak with everything going on right now. That's an easy feeling, especially if you're heavy on social media. The feelings that things aren't going to get any better. That's it's easy to fall into that trap right now. That my future is hopeless. Feeling, and that you focus on the negative and you can't stop focusing on that negative, and it's a helpless feeling where you may be, some of us may even be fighting for something or someone in our life, and they just seem to only get further from your grasp. So that helpless, hopeless feeling, can spiral people down a hole that is not easy to recover from. We all experience these here or there, like I said, but, when you're depressed, this isn't just for a day or two. It lasts much longer. So what are some of the other signs and symptoms of depression? So one would be like persistent sadness, making it difficult to see the good things in your life, and minor obstacles may seem like mountains. Now, I know I've experienced this myself. Self-loathing, turning misery inward and hating things about ourselves. We're always our own worst critic. But this can be, frustrating, and we can be so critical of ourselves And you can have people telling you, for example, I'm not saying I'm self-loathing, but I look at myself physically, and some people can say, oh, you've done so well in the gym, but I can look at myself and I can find a million different things wrong with me and the way I look. We have to, part of that is we have to accept that about ourselves and realize that we can change some of those things if we want to. Another point is like losing interest in things, people, or activities. And I noticed myself doing this, I stopped doing this video and I kind of fell off the rails in doing my videos. Things, people, activities, causes a lack of focus, that loss of interest. You lose focus in things. It's difficult to complete things. This can make difficult thing for you to, complete tasks at work, maybe even. It can impact your work, your families, your relationships. You can lose your libido, and that, wanting to be close with someone can impact our personal relationships, and then it can cause additional issues in the way of even self-loathing, right? And that self-loathing can cause those intimacy issues with your partner as well. Irritability, self-isolation, pulling away from friends and family and those that we care about the most, and just not getting involved. This makes many of the other symptoms even worse and spiral out of control. But these are some of the symptoms of depression. Anxiety, constantly worrying about a person or a situation. And it may not be something that you can change. It may be something you need to resolve, but, and it then causes other things, like self-isolation. And though this can fade over time, but this may also just indicate that when the anxiety fades, if you haven't dealt with it, it can just indicate that people have given up. Disruption in sleep, loss of energy, fatigue, not getting good sleep. Oftentimes people wake up and, in the middle of the night and be thinking about that, they could be thinking of, what gives them that anxiety. And it disturbs your sleep. You don't get a lot of sleep, and you lose energy, and you're fatigued throughout the day, which can also cause other things like appetite issues is another one, eating too much, eating too little, weight gain, weight loss. And then that can also lead to more self-loathing and not being happy about ourselves. Reckless behavior, which can temporarily relieve mental anguish in the case of depression. So, some people may do spontaneous things, embark on adventures and road trips and things to try and make themselves happy, make rash purchases, buy things, turn to substance abuse, and even, engage in, intimate relationships with multiple partners, or, sleeping around with multiple partners, seeking out new relationships, all those sorts of things as well. Suicidal thoughts. Of course, this is usually at the end, if people haven't recognized, some of the signs and some of the things that they're going through and have got some help or gotten over some of these things. So those are a few things. And if you're listening to me now and you can relate to any of those, it's important to know you're not alone, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. So what are some things that you can do, yourselves, besides seeing a doctor or a counselor? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't see your doctor, see a counselor, seek therapy in some way, seek help out externally. But many people may not be at the point where they can bring themselves to get outside help, or even, wrap their mind around taking medication. It's hard to admit to yourself sometimes that you may fall into one of these categories or multiple categories here, and that you've been in that hole for a long time. So what can you do? Well, if you recognize some of these symptoms, you can start by making a conscious effort not to engage in that type of activity anymore. So if you have appetite issues and you're finding some of these things, then force yourself. Find some way to force yourself. If you're, pulling away and isolating yourself, don't engage in that isolating behavior. Don't push the people away that care about you the most, because that just leads to a spiral. Pick up the phone, call someone that cares about you. Look for, support from people who care about you. Get out of the house. Go for a walk. Go for a walk with a friend. Make time to do the activities that you used to love doing, even if they don't bring you joy right now. They may not right now. If you played the piano, play the piano. It may not be that exciting right now, but make that conscious effort to do it. Find ways to support others. Maybe help someone else that might be having problems. Make time to go out on a date with your partner. Talk about your feelings. The bottom line is you need to do things that make you feel good. Now, again, I'm not an expert, and I don't think this should be a replacement for any type of professional help. But if just hearing this helps even one person deal with some of these and maybe come out of this, then the whole thing was worth it. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you all tuned in and listened. Again, like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to try to put out another video here in the next couple days. It's going to be something a little more on the topics that you're used to, but I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys next time.